Act 1. The Cradlesheet Coffin. In the cold, gray February of 1957, in a quiet, wooded area of northeast Philadelphia, a young college student was checking on his animal traps. As he moved through the undergrowth, he stumbled upon a large cardboard box. Curious, he opened it, and what he saw inside would haunt him for the rest of his life. Lying on a soft flannel blanket, naked and bruised, was the body of a small, blonde-haired boy, no older than 6. Fearing he would be implicated, the student didn't report his discovery to the police. It wasn't until several days later, on February 25th, that another man, a truck driver, saw the box and finally alerted the authorities. When the Philadelphia police arrived, they were confronted with a deeply tragic and baffling scene. The boy was lying inside a large cardboard box that had once contained a bassinet from the J.C. Penney department store. He had been carefully wrapped in a worn, faded blanket. He was small for his age, malnourished, and his small body was covered in bruises, though none of them were severe enough to be the cause of death. An autopsy would later conclude that he had died from multiple blows to the head. But the most disturbing clues were the ones that suggested a strange, almost ritualistic, level of care after his death. His blonde hair had been recently and crudely cut, with clumps of it still clinging to his body. His fingernails and toenails were all neatly trimmed. He had been recently bathed. It was as if his killer, after committing a monstrous act of violence, had tried to clean him up, to present him in a state of almost peaceful repose. The police launched a massive investigation, convinced that a child this young would be reported missing by someone. They took his fingerprints and footprints. They created a post-mortem photograph of the boy, fully dressed and sitting in a chair, hoping it would be less shocking and more recognizable to the public. This photo was printed on over 400,000 flyers and plastered on posters in every post office, police station, and courthouse in the city and beyond. The story of the boy in the box became a national sensation. The Philadelphia Inquirer newspaper printed the flyers and distributed them with every paper sold. The case was featured on the television show America's Most Wanted. The entire nation was looking for the identity of this lost little boy. But a deafening silence followed. No one, not a parent, not a relative, not a neighbor, not a schoolteacher, ever came forward to claim him. It was as if the boy had never existed, as if he had simply dropped out of the sky and into that lonely cardboard box. For 65 years, he would be known only as America's unknown child. Act 2. 1,000 Leads to Nowhere. The investigation to identify America's unknown child was one of the most extensive in Philadelphia's history. Yet for decades, every lead turned into a frustrating dead end. Detectives first focused on the physical clues found at the scene. The cardboard box was traced back to a J.C. Penney store in Upper Darby, Pennsylvania, where it had been sold for $7.50. But thousands of these bassinets had been sold, and with no serial number and payments made in cash, it was impossible to track the specific buyer. The unique flannel blanket the boy was wrapped in was also investigated, but its manufacturer could not be identified. Over the years, hundreds of theories emerged. One of the most persistent centered on a foster home that was located just a short distance from where the body was discovered. An investigator on the case pursued this lead for years, believing the boy may have been an undocumented child under the care of the family that ran the home. The family was known to be secretive, but a thorough investigation turned up no definitive evidence linking them to the boy. It remained a strong but unproven suspicion. Then in 2002, the case took a dramatic turn. A woman, known only by the initial M to protect her identity, came forward with a detailed and horrifying story. She claimed her abusive mother had purchased the boy from his birth parents in 1954. She said his name was Jonathan. According to M, her mother subjected the boy to years of horrific physical and sexual abuse. She described him as being severely malnourished and kept in a cellar, hidden from the world. Her account of his death was chilling. One evening, after the boy vomited up a meal of baked beans, her mother flew into a violent rage and repeatedly slammed his head against the floor until he stopped moving. M then described how her mother tried to cover up the crime. She said her mother crudely cut the boy's long hair, bathed his lifeless body, and then forced M to help her drive to the wooded area in Fox Chase to dump the box. Her story matched intimate details of the crime scene that had never been made public, such as the boy having eaten baked beans and his body being wet. The police took M's testimony very seriously. It seemed to be the breakthrough they had been waiting for over 40 years. However, there was a major problem. M had a long and documented history of severe mental illness, which made her a potentially unreliable witness. Investigators spent years trying to find any independent evidence to corroborate her story, but found none. Without any other proof, the compelling story of Jonathan remained just that, a story. The boy in the box was still nameless. ACT3, the name on the headstone. For more than 60 years, the boy in the box lay in a pauper's grave in Philadelphia, his headstone bearing the simple, heartbreaking inscription, America's Unknown Child. The investigators who had dedicated their lives to his case grew old and passed away. The files were handed down from one generation of detectives to the next, but the boy remained nameless. His case was a permanent scar on the city's conscience. But science offered one last hope. With advancements in DNA technology, investigators saw a new path forward. The boy's body was exhumed twice, once in 1998 and again in 2019, to extract genetic material. For years, the DNA sample yielded no matches in any database. But as genetic genealogy became a powerful new tool for solving cold cases, the boy's profile was submitted to specialized labs. Genealogists went to work, painstakingly building a vast family tree from distant DNA relatives. They followed the complex branches of ancestry, closing in on a specific family from the Philadelphia area. Then, in December of 2022, 65 years after his body was found, the impossible happened. Police held a press conference that made headlines around the world. They had finally done it. They had identified the boy in the box. His name was Joseph Augustus Zarelli. He was born on January 13, 1953. Through DNA, investigators had identified his birth mother and father, both of whom were from a prominent local family and were now deceased. They also discovered that Joseph had living siblings who had never known of his existence. After a lifetime of anonymity, America's unknown child finally had his name back. The discovery was a monumental victory for generations of investigators and citizen sleuths who had never given up hope. The boy who had been cared for only by strangers in death could now be remembered for who he was in life. His new headstone now bears his real name, a permanent testament to the persistence of those who fought for his identity. However, one half of the mystery remains unsolved. While we now know who Joseph Augustus Zarelli was, we still do not know who killed him. The investigation into his murder is now more active than ever. With his identity confirmed, police are re-examining every old lead, including the story told by the woman known as M, hoping that this new information will finally lead them to the person responsible for the death of a little boy 65 years ago. The case is a powerful reminder that while some secrets can be buried for decades, there is no statute of limitations on murder and no timeline on the quest for justice. Who do you think was responsible for the death of Joseph Augustus Zarelli? Share your thoughts in the comments below. And for more of history's most compelling cold cases, don't forget to like this video and subscribe to Dark Cell Stories.